Jim Guerrera here on SCN Team Talk, and with me today is SCN's own Justin Misaras. Justin, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me in this really cool studio you guys have put together here. It's pretty nice.
You're welcome. And as always, you're looking good.
Thank you.
Our viewers can't tell, but you also smell pretty good today.
Well, thank you for noticing. Yeah, it was a big step for me today.
Get dressed up and get out of the house.
Get out of the home office. Put on a sports coat. It was a big day for me. My wife didn't know what was going on.
You went the full level there.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd like to hear your story. Hear about you and what makes you tick and where you've come from and where you're going. What can you tell me about yourself? Where did it all start? Where are you from originally?
Great question. Not too far from here, just a few miles west of Novi here. I was born in New Hudson, Michigan in the 80s and grew up with a family of 5. I'm the youngest of 3 children. I got an older sister who actually just got married this past weekend, which is pretty exciting. And I was the official or officiant, whatever the right term is, which was a new thing for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was a really good childhood, a really good upbringing. The South Line and New Hudson community was really good to us. I've got a brother who is 3 years older than me, and my sister's 6 years older. Had a really good upbringing in terms of my parents. I always compare them to as almost the ideal marriage. They really, never argued in front of us. They always did that behind closed doors. Brought us.
Wow.
Yeah, as a father of 3 and soon to be 4, I can tell you that it's not very easy to have that discipline. But grew up with church. I think that was a big part of my life, as well as just how concrete they were in just their parenting style. So I had a great relationship with both my brother and my sister. Started being pretty active in sports pretty early on. I think I first started playing t-ball at 4 years old. Played baseball through about 6th grade. Hockey was the big one for me, though. I really enjoyed playing hockey. A big part of that was probably just starting off in the neighborhood, playing street hockey with a bunch of the neighborhood kids. And my brother was really into it, so being the younger brother, naturally you wanna be like Brian, which is his name, and played a lot of hockey. And so lived in New Hudson until I was about 8 years old, and then we moved to South Lyon, all the same school district. Had a couple of friends that actually moved from the same area with me across town, which is pretty cool to feel comfortable with some buddies, in the same school. It was my parents were pretty conservative growing up. They were both hardworking people. My dad worked every weekend that he could. He worked for General Motors for, I think, a few months shy of 40 years until he retired about 5 years ago. And my mom alike was just retired about a week before the pandemic started, ironically. She was a registered nurse through the Providence system and then Park Internal Medicine, so through different acquisitions and stuff, essentially the same organization. So 2 40-year tenured people pretty much at the same group kind of taught me stability and longevity and loyalty, which is starting to pay off because of almost 9 years here with SCN, which is pretty exciting as well. Going back to just childhood, really into sports, always very competitive in nature, always wanted to kind of get better at whatever I did. Even if it was school, I was pretty good from an academic standpoint. A lot of that was from the influence of my parents, which obviously pushed for us to get as good at grades, do our homework, do the right thing, and being brought up with church obviously helped instill those principles as well. Then middle school, started playing football and lacrosse, and eventually and continued playing hockey in addition to that. The only sport I don't think I played officially as a teen was basketball. Even though I always wanted to be a good basketball player, I just was didn't have the natural talent that I did with some of the other sports. But yeah, so then graduated from Southline High School in 2005, and had decided to go to either Central Michigan University or Michigan State. The only two schools that I had applied to, I knew I wanted to go to an in-state school. Family was very important to me, so I didn't want to get too far from the nest, I guess. And after visiting both the campuses, Michigan State was really big. It was awesome. A lot of people, a lot of really good institutions, especially for their business school. But Central just felt like home. So that was my choice. It was just a smaller, more intimate experience, just even walking campus. I mean, the longest walk from one end to the other was like 10 minutes or so. So that kind of sold me. Went to school at Central, worked at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort for about 4 years in their fine dining institution, where I got to wear my tuxedo every day, which wasn't always pressed or looking as sharp as this is, given I was a college kid and I'd find it in a ball on the floor before I'd go in for my shift a lot of times. But yeah, the casino was a really cool experience. I got to learn a lot about what I didn't want in life. I saw a lot of the same people coming in and out. Really depressing, some of it. You know, they'd win big one week, and then a month or two of just down, down, down. But they'd get their free meal flyer after dropping 10, 15K, you know, on the slots or blackjack, and they come get their free meal that the casino gave them. But met some really good people there. A lot of close friends that I still stay in touch with from working at Soaring Eagle. You know, after college, I had, or I guess to finish my college, to graduate, I had to do my internship. So the last thing I had to do was that internship, and I worked for my uncle in Virginia, Northern Virginia. It was Reston, just outside Washington, D.C. I worked in the capital markets industry. Half the time I'd work with him kind of as like an executive assistant, which is a really cool experience because I think the value back then of the organization was like $48 billion for the mortgage and real estate company.
Wow.
Which he was
good size.
Yeah. So it was cool just to sit down in the meetings that he was in and just take notes and kind of be a chauffeur from site to site. But I learned a lot and picked up.
And he was the CEO of this company, so it wasn't just a small.
Yeah, he was the president, and COO was his official title.
Okay. COO.
But essentially, the CEO was the founder of the organization, and he wasn't as involved. He's getting a little bit older in age, I think. He was just kind of stepping away. My uncle was taking more and more lead on that stuff, and so that was cool. And I was locking mortgage loans in between. That was the boring part of the experience, which that was the slow part of the internship. But after that, came back and moved back home with my roommates, my mom and dad, for about a year, which was an experience in itself, but not a bad setup, Jim. I'll tell you. You know, they had in their basement, it's a walk out to a beautiful lake. They've got a jet ski, a boat,
right.
A beach, and I had a full kitchen and bathroom and bedroom all down there. It was like my own little apartment. So
you were not in a rush to get out of there.
No, you know,
save
I was
some money.
Yeah. At the time, I didn't have any income, so it was probably the only option that I had. But then I asked my parents, I go, just give me 1 week to just kind of do nothing, relax. From when I moved back from Virginia, moved back in with them, like just let me hang out with my friends, and then I'll really get down to crunch time and start applying to jobs. And I had applied to not too many things. You know, I was pretty picky the first week I was really in the zone, and one of them was with AT&T, and I had an interview, and it was a good interview. I would have been like a regional guy, kind of working with the branches, but calling on businesses versus just like a retail outlet. And obviously I had a path as a big company. Never saw myself or imagined myself working for like a communications or a cell phone company, but it was what was available. I mean, you can't be too picky at that point.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, it still would have, my degree was in business management, so I thought it would have transitioned fairly well in what I learned in college. And then the other place I had applied was called SC Novi at the time. And we've talked about this many times, but what really caught my attention was it was SC Jim's the owner of SC Novi, and at the time it was the description. And you may use this posting or something comparable to it now, but it was like, are you an extrovert, high energy? You know, all these different characteristics. I think maybe there were 10 or 12 of them. And as I read through them, I'm like, I truly, passionately believe that I hit all these check boxes.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, this is fantastic. So then I called you, or sent you my resume and email, and you called me the next morning. And to be honest, I think it was 9 o'clock in the morning, still in bed. So I panicked and got out of my bed and ran outside, because that's the only spot where I got cell phone reception. I was like, hi, Mr. Guerrera. Sorry I missed your call. Probably had a fib of, I was, just exercising or something. Not that I was asleep. That's not what I do. But yeah, and then I had the pleasure of meeting you, and just right off the bat, I felt an instant connection that we could work really well together. And, a few weeks, short of 9 years later, here we are.
Yeah, and the rest is history. And I tell this all the time when we get to talk about you and that original contact with each other. But it was probably after our first meeting, I looked at you and I said, you don't even realize this yet, probably, but I think you just found your career, for the rest of your life, I think. I mean, it was just such a perfect match in terms of what I was looking for, what you were looking for. Everything flowed naturally. And, to all hiring managers out there, trust your gut instinct. That was the ultimate test of the tail of the test for me. And it worked. I mean, it's played out basically exactly like we had thought, step by step. COVID, we didn't necessarily predict that coming into the equation.
No,
but
we sure didn't.
But we've gotten through that too, and we're through the worst. But it's fun to go back and think about that.
It is. It was. It just felt very natural, and surprisingly, I went with my gut. Because the money with AT&T was substantially more at the time, but I remember you just kind of laid out this outline of like, if you do this and this, the earning potential's here, and I was like, I gotta go with this guy. I don't think AT&T CEO is gonna have my best interest like Jim Guerrera might. So, being a kind of a small company kind of feel guy, just naturally, I think I knew it was the right choice.
You held your cards close to the vest. This is the first I've heard about that AT&T story.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing with me 9
betcha,
years later.
man.
You're safe now.
There you go. Yeah.
But going back also, it's funny. We were talking about when we first met. And you were also mentioning your prior to SCN life, because you were coming here right out of college.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about insurance, health insurance. At that time, we had a few different options. Oh. And your statement to me was, I tend to break a lot of bones. I need to choose this insurance option.
Yeah, over the years. And I always drank my milk. I always took my calcium, whatever the doctor said, and ate fairly healthy. I don't know what it is. I've broken my collarbone, ribs, my wrist, my ankle, a finger, bruised ribs, which I feel like were just as bad as breaking them. What else? I mean, hip, tailbone, like the most random things. My hip and my tailbone were broke at the same time. That was rough. I broke tailbone in football, just a lollygag practice tackle. I landed on a guy's helmet, and then I could still skate, so I still played hockey with the broken tailbone. It just didn't bother me with the movement as much. And then I got railed into the board. Somebody body checked me, and then broke my hip, and I got a lot of flack from my buddies for a broken hip at 16 or whatever age it was back then, or 15.
That's nothing to mess around.
No, because typically when I would have heard somebody broke their hip, I would have thought of more the elderly. It seems like a commonality, but apparently not. Anybody can do it.
Yeah, and it's probably also a testament to the fact that you run hard. I've noticed that during our working together, is that you really maximize every second that you're involved in your task. I mean, you're dialed in, you're focused.
Very focused.
And that's probably part of it as well.
It's one of my strengths and weaknesses at the same time. Sometimes almost too focused, where I'm not aware of the surroundings around me. But
yeah,
it's good.
So it's a great story. Now, also, one of the things that it's interesting when we go back to when you and I first met, you were very involved in helping your sister and your nephew, and you were very hands-on in terms of providing care to Nathan. And he's grown into a fine young man.
Yeah.
And you also have a family, and you're very involved and very supportive and very hands-on with your children. And it's interesting to see. I'm just a generation ahead of you, and the generation ahead of me, you know, the fathers weren't really as involved. You know, my father and his father. I mean, it was
different lifestyle, right?
And then my generation, I learned from my uncles who were closer in my age. They were very hands-on with their kids, and so I certainly try to do that as well. But I think even your generation is even more so. I mean, it's kind of interesting to see how that goes, and that's a credit to you as well. You're very, you know, you have terrific relationships with your children and your family.
That's what it's all about. You know, sometimes it's hard to have that balance, you know, of focusing on work and the kids, but since I've been working from home since the whole pandemic started, the kids are pretty disciplined. You know, even as young as they are, they know when daddy's office doors are closed. They do a really good job, which is nice, so I can stay laser focused in whatever task at hand to obviously bring home the bacon.
So let's talk a little bit more about your role here at SCN. What can you tell me in terms of what your responsibilities are and the areas of focus that you have?
Well, from when I first started, it's changed quite a bit, obviously, with a little bit more responsibility and just hands-on in different industries and whatnot. But I started off, I remember my first day, or maybe it was my second day, you had given me a plant manager role for an industrial gas company for an air separation plant. And the term industrial gas, from a kid who has no idea about industry at all, I didn't know what industrial gas was. I didn't have no clue what the concept was. I heard air separation. I could, you know, figure it out, I guess, just in my head what it could possibly be, but that would just be speculating. So I knew I put fuel in my tank. I knew I put gasoline in my car tank. So that's about as far as my gas knowledge went. And I just remember you just giving me all this info, and you're like, go find me somebody. And I was like, all right. And I didn't want to let you down, because at the time, when you hired me, you just didn't have the best experience with kids right out of college really working out, whether they didn't last.
Yeah, we had zero. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Kids out of college, it was a risk. We rolled the dice a few times, and it didn't work out. So. And
you made that clear to me in the interview process, like, you know, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm taking a big risk here because it's never worked out.
You got to figure it out.
Yeah, and so that was in the back of my mind. So good play on your end, whether you knew it or not. So I really wanted to do my best, of course. So I remember I come home that first night, my mom and dad, my roommates, you know, had eaten some dinner. I'm like, all right, I'm going to the computer, and I just was on Wikipedia and all these websites, looking at competitor sites, understanding what is industrial gas, what applications at least, you know, are they used for and stuff. So first started mostly recruiting. A lot of the positions were from you. And then gradually, as I started having some early success, you had trusted me to take over some of your accounts, which was a really cool thing from my side. You know, that you trusted me with some business that you had worked 10, 11, however many years on, that you trusted me to take on those responsibilities to do a good job for the client. So, excuse me. So that was where my role kind of changed to not just recruiting, but actively managing the process, developing new business, trying to find new companies to recruit for. And essentially it's just grown from there, just really into different product groups, but all focused in the industrial sector, which has been my bread and butter.
Absolutely. And what's really cool, we built this thing, you built this thing literally the right way, you know, one block at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You put the first piece in place, made it perfect, then the next piece, but you kept the first piece, and then the next piece, and you kept those pieces. It was perfect. and you're still doing that. And I think it's a testament to you, your organization, the way that you approach things from an analytical and a structural standpoint. It's been a pleasure. And I do recall those early first days, some of the hands-on administrative stuff, which was important for you to kind of truly understand this thing, because in my mind, I was going to pass it off to you and you were going to run with it. And here we are 9 years later.
Right. Who would have thought,
And that's pretty cool. And now you're telling me what we need to be doing in that place, which is great.
Right.
So
to some degree.
I love it. So it's been an incredible success story. And the ultimate measure, of course, are the actual dollars, the production, the sales dollars.
Sure.
And every year the sales dollars have risen. And that first year you received a rookie award within the MRINetwork, which is incredible. It's a great accomplishment.
Very proud.
And then every year after that, you have achieved our pace setter ranking, which is the top of the top within our network.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have had top 5 finishes, top 3 finishes within the entire MRI organization, which is phenomenal considering you got 3,000 to 5,000 associates out there, out of 400 to 500 offices all over the globe. So that's incredible,
Thanks. Yeah, it's cool to see that, because I know I put a lot of shoulder into this over the years, and to get recognized like that, it's really cool and definitely a proud moment.
It's rewarding, absolutely. Yeah. So, what about your goals? What are some of the things that you hope to accomplish professionally?
That's a great question. Short term is to get through the pandemic and just survive, but business has been progressively getting better and better. I expect it to kind of plateau here in the short term until the election gets through. Hopefully I'm wrong and it continues to grow, but I'm very optimistic about 2021, but my goals are simply kind of the same, just a little bit bigger. If my number was 5 before, it's 7 today. Obviously in larger quantities, but I want to continue growing professionally. I want to continue to grow our desk, continue to have our team approach. Obviously, it's not just me. We've got an awesome support group from our administrative group, Aaron Foster, Tracy, it goes on. And then, of course, the recruiters. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if I didn't have the support that I do from the recruiting part of the process. I can bring in as much business, but if we can't perform and actually provide solutions or bring people to the companies, then we're not going to have success. So continue growing our business from a sales volume perspective, not sacrificing on quality, bringing them the best service possible, because I think that's what it's all about. Kill them with kindness. I've learned that really early on. Even if your client's not the nicest or not the most satisfied, be positive, change it with action and good service, and it always turns around. There's been a few bad seeds, but I think 1 or 2 in the 9 years that I've had that just didn't work out. But other than that, it's been smooth sailing.
It's been incredible.
Yeah.
You mentioned the recruiters, and you do have a special relationship with Dan Ramon.
I do. SCN. My rock, man, my buddy,
you guys
my brother.
Have been together since the very beginning, 9 years ago when you started. And the symbiotic relationship that you have is second to none. And it's truly fun for me to see and to watch, and I always thought that it would be good and could be good, and it has played out that way. It's played out that way repeatedly over many years. And certainly individually within the industrial product space, I think that you are the lead search consultant dealing with clients. I know that for a fact in the markets that we serve, based on volume, based on the companies that we work with. So you are truly a leader in that space, a thought leader. And I also think as a dedicated recruiting specialist, Dan is the lead recruiter as well in terms of working with the candidates and finding the people. Yeah.
It's so comforting to have somebody that I can trust. I think of him as a brother because we've got that relationship.
Really, it truly is. Yeah.
We understand each other.
Yeah.
Crystal clear. We don't ever let emotion get in between it. We're conscious of each other's emotions if it gets a little sticky, but I mean, just to trust that if I ask him to do something or vice versa, he asks me to do something, that we've got each other's back, and we're always going to do whatever's best for the two of us, which is, I've learned through, people coming in and out over the years that it's very difficult to find that relationship and that trust and that bond that you and I have obviously built in 9 years, but to have that from a recruiter, search consultant perspective, it's priceless.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. You guys have it like unlike any other. Mm-hmm. It's phenomenal. So in terms of the work, you're at the top of the profession and you're a young guy. The future is incredible and it's going to be fun to see. What do you do outside of the office? How do you balance your life out?
Well, I've got a beautiful wife, my Crystal K. So she's my rock and the boss, as I tell the kids. We've got 3 kids, 5, 3, and my son will be 2 at the end of September here in 2020. And then we're expecting a 4th on May 15th of next year. So that should be enough to let you know what I do outside of work. But I still play hockey Monday and Tuesday nights. It alternates, which has been a passion of mine since I think I started skating. I was like 5 or 6. Very active. I work out probably 5 or 6 times a week. I like to play basketball just on my driveway, go for bike rides. Very active with the kids. Whatever I can do to get outside, at least during the nice weather, during the Michigan summer, spring, and fall, and get my kids to see how active we are, so they can obviously not be so focused on the tablets or the video games, which they're not into yet, thank goodness, but I know it's only a matter of time. So just always staying busy, very active with our church. Every Sunday, at least prior to things kind of closing down, every Sunday I would teach 4th and 5th grade boys Sunday school, which is really cool. Something that I took on to. They were really short on volunteers one year, and just in my heart and my gut, I thought it was time. I thought it was my part to contribute to my church, and I went on a whim and did it. And ever since then, it's been a really cool experience. Met some really cool kids, and really feel I've helped them in one way or the other, whether it's small or minor or major. And it's pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. You're one of the good guys. You have...
I try to be.
Yeah, you've helped your family. You have a phenomenal family home. You've got a unbelievable practice that you've built, and really everything is on the upside. So it's fun to watch. When you and I first met, you were coming right out of college, and obviously building towards that next stage in your life.
Right.
And you've arrived. So
you've seen a few changes in my life.
I've seen
since
a few
day
changes,
one. Not just professionally, but at home as well. And
yeah.
And I have to work to some degree for meeting my wife.
That's right.
Because I went out to, it was after work, and we went out for a cocktail with Sandy Miller, who had left our firm just a few months back, who we got along really well, and our office manager at the time. And my wife, Crystal, was our waitress, and I was just like, man, she is special, the way she was speaking to Sandy and Michelle. And I went on a whim, and I left my card in the check presenter. I'd never done that before, and I was so nervous. I could feel my face flush, and, here we are 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it is now down the road, and 4th kid on the way. Who would have thought it,
That's exciting. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate everything that you've done. I can't put it into words. I know that we're just getting it going even, and we've got an amazing future. Thanks so much for everything that you do in the office, out of the office, and then obviously for society.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure to many more.
Boy. Cheers. Let's get it going.
Thanks, Jim.
So this is Jim Guerrera and Justin Misaras with SCN Team Talk.